This has been a great experiment in collaborative discussion, generative conversation. We haven't got to the level of really making decisions that are binding or even creating agreement fully. But certainly these are the threads of a conversation that needs to take place, not just among us, obviously, but among the broader public. And I think this is a very important discussion to bring into London and into the world in general. And it's not that this hasn't been talked about in the public domain, it's being talked about all the time. But we don't have many avenues for really focusing this type of discussion. So that's why when John and Peter recommended that we create a forum like this, I was ecstatic because I believe that this is very necessary, this kind of discussion. And the presentation I made this morning, again, just to underscore what my intent was to say these are different variables that are coming from different silos that are all part of the big picture. They're all in the public domain. There's nothing, even the sustainability rate that sometimes people think I've created. There's a number of mathematical modelers and others in public policy who are looking at that very thing. So it's not anything that's new. It's actually, all of this is in the public domain. But I think what we can do is begin to say, well, what works and what synergies are created by putting these various things together. And certainly the principles of Henry George and the understanding of land value transfer, I think are absolutely fundamental because they have inspired the commons movement greatly to recognize that that's exactly what has to happen, although they expand the definition of commons from land to other resources. But I don't think that's a big quibble, really, because it's. But that's just an example of one area which has been very influential to the commons. But yet at the same time, there are other aspects that tax reform advocates and certainly public banking advocates, and I think many of those interests have been represented in this discussion. They all have to come together. They have to all be under one umbrella, and there's a real interest that we all have now in making that happen. And I would just like to sort of mention briefly some of the benefits that I see coming out of that framework that I outlined this morning. And they're fairly simple, and they're kind of self-evident, but I think they're worth repeating. A debt-free currency with a planetary sustainability rate adjusts the value of money, the prices of goods and services, how money flows through the system, and how government is organized. This ends the creation of the money supply as a profit-making business. It provides the national money supply as a public service, and it eliminates the cost of interest on government debt. It frees everyone from having to pay a subsidy to the banks. It ends subsidies provided by government to business and finance, which is something that I don't think we've talked much about here today. It stops the outsourcing of public infrastructure and services to the commercial business sector and financial sector. It curbs public sector inefficiency and waste. It ends borrowing for public purposes to make up for the present differences between taxes and spending. It ends government regulation of the finances of individual and businesses caused by the present imbalances between money supply, taxation, and spending. It ends the operation of tax havens. It makes it easier to control the amount of money created and allows everyone to benefit from fairer, more efficient, and more sustainable means of production and exchange. A debt-free currency valued through a sustainability rate changes our motivations in organizing and living our lives and in our relationships with other people and our natural resources. Turns the money system into a source of motivation to support the survival and well-being of society and the planet. It allows commons trusts to be catalyst for an accountable, decentralized money system. It encourages consumers to be producers of their own resources, which is a central tenet of the commons movement. It transforms public budgets by allowing tax revenues from the commons to be spent directly into circulation to add value to the commons. It demonstrates that public services are often more effectively delivered by communities than privatization. It allows all citizens to share in common revenue. It allows us to create our money supply locally to serve our own interests as well as our collective goals for society and nature. It enables everyone to benefit from the equal and efficient governance and production of resources in ways that support the survival and well-being of people and the planet. It makes the economy a component part of the environment and brings local and global commons fully into scale. The monetary system is not a monster. It was created by human beings. We invented it, and we developed the present system money, human beings. And of course, it's human beings who can change how it operates. I only suggest that this conversation should continue, and that and we'll have an opportunity momentarily now to do that. But I would like to thank you sincerely all for coming. There are 2 other events in this series coming up tomorrow and also on Friday, and there's information about that here. As Peter will probably remind you, but I'll jump the gun on him here, the PowerPoint that I made this morning and also the talking points that I worked from this morning will be available in a couple of days on the School of Commenting website. Probably by Friday, we'll have that all wrapped up, so that by the time I leave London, you can access that if you like. And that's in the public domain. I'm not, I'm a commenter. I'm putting that out there for anyone's use. Lastly, I really want to thank the School of Economic Sciences here for hosting this event, because I know it's in the interest of the school to promote events like this, but particularly right now, to create an inclusive environment to examine these issues. I can think of nothing more important. So with having said that, I will open it up to you, and we'll have a discussion for the remaining portion of our talk today.
Thanks very much. Thank you.